guys, welcome to episode 12 of my Imperium review series. I'm going to be reviewing issue 12 today. Issue 12. Issue 12 is pretty cool. It's coming with 3 paints, which are Agrax Earthshade, which is always useful. Although if you've been collecting all the magazines, you've probably got a lot of pots of Agrax Earthshade. I think it's been supplied a couple of times with each magazine just because it and non-oil are very useful, and these big pots are actually quite good. We've got Canoptic Alloy, which I haven't had before, but looks like a very nice browny silver, kind of like an earthy gunmetal almost. And that looks pretty good. I'm actually going to open it up and see what it looks like inside. I mean, yeah, you can see the light here is making it look a bit grayer than it looks in person, but you can see that's a very meaty metallic color, and that's gonna work very well on a lot of stuff. And then we've got a Screamer Pink, which is a very deep pink, bordering on red or purple. Then again, I'm gonna open that up and you can see the difference there. If I hold it there, you can see how it's holding. But then if I go to this one, you can see how it's already running and dripping. That's actually quite a reasonable demonstration of the difference between a base coat, which Screamer Pink is, and a layer, which is what Canoptic Alloy is. One is just a little bit more runny than the other. Obviously, I've taken the whole lid off, but obviously this stuff, you can see it's just thin and watery. Ouch. Yeah. Price-wise, we're talking $4.75 for that, which is reasonable because you do get a lot, and despite it being thin and watery, it still has a reasonable pigment ratio, so you can water it down a little bit. I sometimes water it down by a third, sometimes by half. If I do it by half, it's usually because I want to put 2 layers of it on, and I want it to give a slightly different effect and pull up in a slightly less obvious way, but I still want to have the darkness in the colour. So that's something totally worth experimenting with. The metallics are worth, I believe I wrote it down and then I hid it under a magazine, are worth $3.70, and the base layer is worth $2.75 for a total of £11.20, meaning you're saving £3 and a penny, which doesn't sound like much, but for £3 you can buy another base layer and I don't know, a lollipop. So it's a saving worth having, and the colours themselves are colours that we haven't had before in the magazines and are good colours to have. Obviously, I think you get the most use out of the shades. I do personally, that whilst they're quite expensive compared to other shades, you get a good amount, and they're really good. They've got a high pigment ratio, which allows you to dilute them down and spread them out a little further. And they look fairly fantastic painted straight on as well. I think GW shades are one of their stronger one of the stronger parts of their paint range. I think not in as much, but the same can be said for their metallics. GW have a wide range of metallics that they seem to have spent a lot of time perfecting, starting with the Retributor Gold and the Storm Shield, the Stormcast Eternals. When they brought those out, they really wanted to, their intent was obviously to paint them all gold, and they really wanted to have a solid metallic range. And I think they've really achieved that. They've really achieved that with their range. There are a lot of really amazing paints out there. I rank Vallejo as possibly the best personally. I love Army Painter, although now I am finding that if you leave them a long time, they do separate and it takes quite a bit to mix them back up. But if you're using them regularly, they've got a fantastic range of paints overall. But I have to admit that some of the GW kind of sub-ranges, like their metallics, like their shades, are winning hands down in terms of the breadth of stuff you get. And I want to say quality, but the quality versus price is debatable. But in terms of how good they are and what you can get, they've got a fantastic fucking range, right? I don't think anybody at the moment is beating them in terms of what you can get. And I think one of the things they are doing, I mean, particularly with their technical ranges, they're creating small, affordable, and acquirable specialist stuff. It's like the liquid green stuff, the crackle bases and things like that have always been around. But if you wanted them, you ended up paying like 20 quid for a big crackle medium, and then you could mix it with pigments and paints, and you ended up with as much crackle medium as you need in your lifetime. And whilst it may well have been better value for money than the little pots, if you just want it for a few guys, there's no point spending the extra 20, the extra 16, 15 pounds for something that you're never going to use all of it. If you've got you paint, if you wanted it for a couple of squads, then these pots will do that. And these pots will often do almost an army if you're careful. And that extra £15 that you used to spend on creating large amounts of it just was lost. If you weren't doing it en masse, if you weren't like a pro painter or you weren't painting large Imperial Guard armies. So, GW paints fantastic. You'll often hear me cry about other paints and occasionally gripe about the price because they're not the cheapest. But the actual content of it is pretty great. So when you're getting it with a magazine on a £3 discount, I really don't think there's anything to argue about. Even if it's a paint you're only going to use a little bit of now and then, having access to it for a significant amount less is still pretty cool, and does start to, if you knock £1 off of these each, it starts to bring it in line with the other paint ranges. And like I say, you're saving £3, so this could be £175, this could be £270, and this could be £370, and those prices are fucking amazing for these. £470, a little bit, £475. Need to think about it, but it's so good I buy it anyway. So that's fucking amazing. £375. I might consider buying a cheaper, just gunmetal metallic, and perhaps mixing a bit of this in with it if I've already bought this, or mixing a bit of another brown in with it to make this, rather than if I'm not using anything, rather than buying a pot. But at $270, I wouldn't even bat an eyelid. And I know it sounds like £1, but when you consider over all the paints we buy and all the stuff we do, absolutely, it brings it into the range of a no-brainer. It brings it in the range of, if that's $270, fucking having that. And if you take the £1 of this and make it $170, that's cheaper than any than any decent paint on the range. That's cheaper than Army Painter. That's cheaper than Vallejo, which, you know, all of a sudden makes the paint magazines, which don't seem like too much of a saving, but all of a sudden you're thinking, well, actually, you know, the amount I use these paints, the amount I'm going to buy, and the amount of paint I'm getting, it brings the value for money of these paints into the fucking fantastic range and out of the, oh, that's an expensive range. And I thought that was worth a little rant. Anyway, like I said, overall costing you $11.20, with the magazine costing you $8.99 for a saving of £3 and a penny. Let's get to the magazine. Always got a little blog by Ian. One day I will look up who that is because I have no idea. I just assume that he is some kind of superhero of magazines. Anyway, to the first page, we've got Necron Weapons and War Gear names. As you guys already know, my opinion on this kind of stuff. It's extra value. It's extra added value to content you already have. So it's a win situation. I'll do the voice. The weapons and war gear. No, I'll do the Necron voice. The weapons and war gear of the Necron race. I sound like Jimmy Savile. Jesus. The weapons and war gear of the Necron race. That's a bit dark. I've forgotten the voice. Fuck it, I'm doing a new voice. The weapons and war gear of the Necron race are as technologically advanced as they are incredibly ancient. These devices are created, maintained, and powered by the eldritch science of the Necron cryptech engineers, and their names reflect the incredible power they possess. As you can hear, the point they're trying to get across is they're old and they're powerful. And whilst they could have said that, I think we all agree that this is better. Anyway, if we look at the table, it's another D33, giving us, if we look at the roll of 11, the Mind Shard. And if we look at the roll of 12, the Tomb Sliver. That's pretty cool. Mixing it up, we got 32 Crypt and 12 is Guard, so you could have the Crypt Guard or the Solar Shroud, all loads of cool names like that. So, yeah, this is all cool and amazing. It really helps you get into the Necrons. It really helps you kind of like build character around your dudes and around your weapons. And, you know, if the Flesh Atomizer does a particularly good kill, you're going to remember that and it deserves a name. And the hand-to-hand, what do we have for hand-to-hand? The Obsidian Brand. Cool stuff. The Fractal Doom. So we've got a lot of cool Necron names there. I'm particularly enjoying the fact that they're giving you a good breadth of names. After having the Cornate stuff come out as the Blood Reavers and the Blood Secretors and the Bloody Bloods, seeing them giving you a bit more scope on the names in the magazines, frankly, a relief. Next, we've got the Imperium Nihilus. I'll read the blurb. The Imperium Nihilus lies beyond the rolling warp storms that make up the Great Rift. Cut off from terror and blind to the Astronomican's light, those who dwell here face a legion of nightmarish foes. I really like that they kind of define the difference. It does seem like that to a certain extent GW have made 40k easy mode on one side and 40k hard mode on the other side. But it does allow you to sort of like alter the feelings of the game. It's like, you know, you play the Solaris side. You know, you're rebuilding the Empire. You're making everything stronger. There is a glimmer of hope. You play the Nihilist side, you're desperately fighting a losing battle to the end and a slow death, which gives you that kind of classic grimdark 40k hopelessness. which I think is good. You know, I've always been a fan of the hopelessness, but I've also always been a fan of having that glimmer of hope. You know, we all knew that Gilliman was going to return someday. We all knew that that my brain has failed on the Dark Angel. Lion L. Johnson was gonna come back Sunday. That God, my brain's tired today. We know that the late leader of the Raven Guard hasn't gone. We know that that Lehman Russ popped down the shops for a packet of cigarettes, and he's definitely going to come back one day. And you know, do you love us now, Daddy? As it were. Sorry, I'm a Spaceball fan, but there is such a fucking there is such an echo of "Do you love me now, Daddy?" of a lot of what they do. So when Lehman Russ returns, he'll really love us. Oh, that's why we're keeping sagas, so he can see all the cool things we've done. Yeah, and from the beginning, the Emperor was always hinted at. The new law puts it a little less, but the old law had him as basically the top perpetual. A bunch of shamans who used to reincarnate, who were reincarnating psychers or sorcerers, depending on how you put it, on Earth, killed themselves before Slaanesh was born, so they could bring themselves back into one eternal, immortal body, so that they wouldn't just die, because they knew with all the storms coming, all different coming, it was already becoming harder to reincarnate, and they was concerned that they wouldn't be able to, that they'd die and just be eaten by the warp. Or at least that was the original one. But the idea there was that even if the Emperor died, because he was so powerful, he may well have a reincarnation left in him. And the only reason he hasn't reincarnated is because the Astronomicon was needed. And his surviving sons couldn't bear the thought of going without him, so they didn't turn on the Golden Throne to its full extent. And if they had turned on to its full extent, it would have allowed him to ascend to neo-godhood and become a minor immortal chaos god, or come back, depending on what you thought was likely. God, I'm trying to think of the Imperial Fist's bloody leaders now. I can't remember any of the names. Yell it at the screen, that'll help. But anyway, God damn it, it's gone from my head. Anyway, the leader of the Primarch of the Imperial Fists allegedly knows where the switch is, and allegedly was going to turn it on, but he couldn't bring himself to do it because he didn't realise. Because, well, depending on the variant, he didn't realise what it was going to do. So he's like, well, I'm not killing my dad. Or he couldn't bear to, he didn't have the determination, which is surprising considering he is, to actually flip the switch and kill his dad when he wasn't entirely sure. My brain keeps saying Patarabo and it's not. Oh, God damn you useless brain. Anyway, we all know what I'm talking about. A lot of it has been retconned since then. A lot of it has been changed and so on and so forth. But there you go. But this describes the Imperium Nihilist, which is the darker side, the side that's the opposite side of the Great Rift. There are supposedly a few routes to it, possibly going over or under the Great Wish, which is going to take you a long time. And there are supposedly a couple of navigatable routes that allow for 1 in 100 ships to get through, kind of thing. But it is effectively cut off. You can throw 1,000 ships out there just to pass a message of, just to ask how you're doing, and another 1,000 just to be sure of getting a message back of not well. But you wouldn't be able to send 100 Space Marine legions through there just in the hope of getting legions are chapters through there just in the hope of one getting through. It would be way too expensive. Yeah, so we've got some more descriptions here. Commander Dante. Got a description of Commander Dante. And that's something I didn't know because I hadn't read it, but apparently the Blood Angels homeworld is actually in the Imperium Nihilist side. So the Blood Angels the Blood Angels are fighting a good fight there. He's also been named regent by Rabute Gilliman. Dante is now responsible for commanding all the Imperial forces on that side, and has sworn to purge the Imperium Nihilist of Chaos, which is exactly the kind of thing the Blood Angels would swear, and will probably go about as successfully as you would imagine until they manage to get back to it. Oh, now we've got a nice fundamental explanation here. Nice basic one on chapter planets. Many Space Marine chapters operate from a single home world and then get almost wiped out by orcs. We're looking at you, Crimson Fists, where they carry out their training, recruit new warriors, and rearm their forces. It is their sovereign domain over which they have complete authority, and their chapter master is Lord of all. It is worth noting that while some chapters only have one world, a lot of the bigger chapters, like Blood Angels and Dark Angels, any of the family chapters and some of the big ones, they'll have a home world or they'll have a home ship. Well, Dark Angels don't, but Blood Angels and Ultramarines, they do have their own home world, but they also maintain recruiting bastions on many other worlds, even if it's just a small fortress that takes on a few dozen applicants a year and then sends them back to the home world. The reason they do this is so they don't get wiped out by a galactic event. There have been Space Marine chapters who found themselves suddenly in the path for High Fleet and they fought valiantly but just fucking died because they had no backup. If you ever get a chance, there's a novel called Rindsworld, fantastic novel about the Crimson Fists. They were kind of the third of the first founding chapters of the Imperial Fists. So you had the Imperial Fists, and then when they broke stuff down, they broke it down to the Black Templars, the Soul Drinkers, and the Crimson Fists, and each of them got some cool relics. The Soul Drinkers got like the spear, what did the Templars get? I know the Imperial Fist kept the bones. I think the Templars got a sword, but the Crimson Fist's got this orb full of Rogel Dawn, that's his fucking name, full of Rogel Dawn's blood, and every year they go back, and they were very much sort of based on some of the Spanish and the Spanish Roman Catholic religions, where there's a lot of stuff about blood and the sacrament, and they had this sphere full of dry blood, and as a miracle, every year it would turn into wet blood. It would start and slosh around the sphere, and they'd all stare at it and go, "Woo!" And one year, when they were staring at it, nearly wipes out their whole chapter. I won't go into it anymore because I don't want to spoil it too much. But that's why a lot of chapter worlds are not actually the only single recruitment point for chapters. But anyway, you've got a great little description of it here. Some lovely pictures of a chapter I don't recognise. These look like they've got a Templar mark on one side and an axe with lightning on the other side. I know that's a chapter. It's the Storm Reapers, there you go, defending their home. So there's another cool chapter. Next we've got a brief description on Fleet Base chapters and Fortress monasteries. There are several fleet-based chapters, most notably the Dark Angels, who have a giant spacefaring fortress called the Rock and a lot of fleets. But there are several others who are just based on fleets of ships. They tend to have a territory that they're allowed to recruit from, and they just do like these. Their fleets often do this big circle of their recruiting territory, and then the sub-fleets then go out and do missions. Some fleets don't do that. Some fleets just wander the galaxy, and they'll randomly turn up on your world and go, "We need new Space Marines. We'll have your kids," which can be a shock to Imperial World, I'd imagine. But beware, Space Marines tend to be made from like teenagers. They just literally turn up and go. They just literally turn up, grab the healthiest looking teenagers, and then fuck off. And it's like, that's it. It's like, well, we protect the Imperium. Your kids are ours. Bye. Which can lead to a lot of weirdness. But there you go. And then you have your fortress-based chapters with fortress monasteries, and often, sometimes they can combine. So you've got a chapter world, and as I said, a little fortress on other worlds. Sometimes they just have a dozen worlds with fortresses on. They don't have any intention of ruling or managing these worlds. They just maintain fortresses on, and those fortresses every year take in a tithe of young blokes, usually voluntarily, because becoming superpowered and immortal is actually a really good thing that a lot of people aspire to, and they tend to play down a lot of you will die in the process, and some of you won't become immortal, and you'll just end up chapter serfs, and sometimes even chapter slaves, and sometimes even worse, chapter servitors, because they can't let you out with the knowledge you now have of Space Marines, and you could pose a threat. And these tend to be the main three ways. Sorry, I'm still twitchy these days. These tend to be the main three ways that chapters tend to recruit. And all of them are cool, and whenever you make your chapter, you can decide. I used to run a Space Wars variant chapter called the Sky Warriors. They technically weren't Space Wars, but they were Space Wars. I just wanted a different paint scheme. And I had them being entirely fleet-based, and they used to just turn up in Imperial Worlds, defend the Imperial Worlds, and go, right, we've lost X many people. We're taking 2 times that in your kids as the cost of defense. It is an honor. You should be proud of it. Goodbye. Mostly because I thought it was funny and a bit grimdark. Now I'm playing Wolfspear, and there's not that much description of how they recruit, but they have a home world which has been given to them. I believe they recruit from the sectors kind of behind it, because their home world circles a warp rift, a small warp rift, or their home, not circles, their home world is in a solar system that's just outside a small warp rift. So I'm imagining they're not going to be recruiting from there for fear of chaos, taint, and things like that. They'll recruit from the worlds further away, but I don't know. I'm not sure if it's been said yet. I'm hoping they do more stuff on the Wolfspear, because they are currently the only Space Marine chapter, Space Marine Space Wolf successor chapter. But hopefully there'll be more. We've got a nice bit here on Chaos Demons. That is some fucking beautiful artwork. I mean, it just really is. We've got some scouts there who I cannot see their iconography. No, they're not scouts. Are they scouts from Imperial Guard? They're Imperial Guard. Sorry, I thought they were Space Marine scouts for a second. They're not. They're Imperial Guard. Got very big knives. Could be Tanith, maybe. They got big knives and odd haircuts. They could be Cadian. They might be something different. You've got those guys. It's all gone black. You've got those guys there. Maybe it's still gone black. And you can see, no, I'm putting that down. That doesn't work. And you can see Nurgle, Slanesh, and Khorne demons there, so that's cool. And it gives you a nice little description and an inquisitorial report. No enemy of the Imperium is more terrible than the demons of chaos. Quick thing, it's often pronounced demons, but it's pronounced Daemons, which could be pronounced, which could be pronounced daemons. Weirdly enough, actually means spirits of the air, which could be a reference to them coming out of nowhere. Who knows? But anyway, Chaos Demons. They are numberless foot soldiers of the dark gods, wrought from the very essence of the Imperium. Their monstrous forms are shaped by the darkest nightmares and cruelest desires of mortal beings. And to be fair, every other feeling as well. They just flow together like for like, so they become sort of an extreme version. But they're pretty cool. You notice these are the worst and terrible enemy, and then when they talk about the Necrons, they're the worst and terrible. Everybody is the worst and most terrible enemy, including humans. So that's an entirely accurate statement and in no way contradictory, and one of the fun things about 40k. Chaos Demons are one of the core bad guys of the system, and one of the ones it's focusing on, certainly since 8th edition. We've had a mini focus here with this magazine on Necrons, but it's quite likely they'll go back to Chaos Demons with box sets soon. Mostly because there's 4 different Chaos Demons, and it's really easy to create some nasty, meaty stuff. The previous 40k magazine ran with Nurgle, and there was so much beautiful artworks and stunning models there. They've done conversions which allow you to bring the Tzeentchian Beastmen over to 40k as a kind of Imperial Guard cultist force. There's been extra Khorne stuff, although the Khorne stuff they brought out in the 2000s is actually still pretty cool and actually stands up, but it has gotten meatier, and they've done some Slaneshi stuff as well. Next, we've got how to paint with shades, because they've given us the Agrex Earth shade. So you're going over the colours there, and again with some of the stuff you're going over the colours there. Next, they've given you a kind of a gallery of some of the stuff you're getting there. They haven't painted over the Ultramarines. You'll probably want a blue or a non-oil for that. Some more stuff for the Necrons, and they've got using Canoptic Alloy as a base coat. So you've got some stuff that's been painted with other colours and some stuff that you're going to paint with the Canoptic Alloy. Basically to give the Necrons more depth. Metallics can be really cool because they tend to give your figure a lot of why have I gone dark? Give your figure oh, my batteries are running away. Oh, I just better plug you in. They tend to give your figures a lot of, there we go, they tend to give your figures a little bit more depth than a flat paint, but they don't give your figures as much depth as some of the as a paint and a wash. So they still wash over them, and they use some different colours just to give you some highlights and keep it looking different rather than just one kind of metallic bit. And having all these different metallics from GW, like I say, is actually pretty cool. Next we've got a mission: defending the crypts, in which you're using your captain, your assault intercessors that you've got, your Necron Overlord, and your Necron Warriors. So it's another small, straightforward skirmish. They're introducing keywords such as character and stuff like that. So they're beginning to introduce the keywords, and we've got some stuff on that to explain what a keyword is. I've already been through the other stats of these guys, so that's pretty cool. And here's these guys smashing up stuff, which is pretty cool. Okay, so inside page, standard. All stuff we've had before, though I do recommend you do it. Next week, as we were expecting, we've got more of the intercessors. So that's issue 13. Ooh, unlucky. And the contents are going to be Assault Intercessors, Origins of the Necrons, and New Fight Phase Rules. Week after that, we have Scenery. And again, if you've collected the other magazines, you'll almost certainly already have this scenery. But there's not a problem with that. It's always fun to get more scenery. Plus, a lot of this, all this scenery is in separate bits. But it's it can be fun just to glue it together to create a few larger set pieces. So that instead of having just one set of cargo containers, you've got a set of them stacked up in 3. They'll fall down, but it's huge. And you've got another set stacked, so you can like go up and down and have some really high cover. You can stack the boxes and the barrels together now and glue them solid. And of course, you could already stack them together if you have them separately from the last issue, but by gluing them solid, they tend to stay up more. So it gives you more. It can give you more set pieces, and it can give you scenery that actually stays in place, and you don't have to constantly put the barrels back and go, "Is that right?" So that's pretty cool. I will see you guys next week, and I hope you have a good time, and I hope you're enjoying the series. Bye bye.